popularly known as DSC show, for 4 years, from August 2014 to August 2018. 28 states of Bharat. Of course, we reached out to all of you in 190 countries across the world. The show was very successful. Each episode was being watched by almost 25 million people every week. For past 6 years, the demand of the show has never died down. People write to us, people ask for the show to restart again. Hence, we are beginning the show once again on All Z Network, also on WION, which is the global network channel from India. Again, thank you for your love and affection. See you soon at Subhash Chandra Show.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at yoursarthi@such.org.in.
Welcome back to WION World is One. Thank you so much for staying with us. My name is Hem Kaur Sura and you're watching World DNA. Here's what we've lined up for you on this show this morning. Let's take a look. Amid continued Israeli strikes in Gaza, 8-hour pauses in hostilities to kick in on Sunday to allow polio vaccination of nearly 640,000 children over 3 days. First round of vaccinations already underway. Israel Defense Forces say it has found dead bodies in Gaza that may be of some of the hostages. US President Joe Biden says efforts are on for their identification. Russian officials say they destroyed over a dozen drones launched overnight by Ukraine targeting Moscow and other regions in Russia. This is Ukrainian President Zelensky pressed the United States to greenlight deeper strikes into Russia. US Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris slams Donald Trump on his visit to the US military's Arlington Cemetery, saying he disrespected sacred ground. A staff member was allegedly pushed during Trump's visit last week. Big focus on the economy in Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian's first TV interview since taking office. Pezeshkian seeks $100 billion in foreign investments to achieve 8% growth, says the United States and European sanctions have created problems. UNICEF issues emergency tender to secure Mpox vaccines for crisis-hit countries with Africa CDC and WHO agreements to be made for up to 12 million doses through 2025. US rapper Fatman Scoop dies after he collapsed mid-performance during a free concert in Connecticut on Friday night. Amid continued Israeli strikes in Gaza, 8-hour pauses in hostilities will kick in on Sunday to allow polio vaccination of nearly 640,000 children over 3 days. The first round of the vaccinations is already underway. Here's more on this. Take a look.
Children at Nasser Hospital in Gaza started to get vaccinated against polio on Saturday, ahead of the planned start to a United Nations campaign. Marwa Al-Khat says she's doing her best to keep her baby girl safe, both from polio and fighting in the enclave.
I was worried and afraid because this is scary, the polio disease. Every step we take, we thank God that we are safe, because of the strikes, jets, and everything happening.
Underscoring the risk in the area, Palestinian health authorities said Israeli strikes killed dozens of people on Saturday, with clashes in Gaza's central and southern areas. In a statement, the Israeli military said it continued to operate in the central and southern Gaza Strip. The UN is due to start vaccinating some 640,000 children on Sunday. It will rely on daily 8-hour pauses in fighting between Israeli forces and Hamas militants in specific areas of the war-torn territory. World Health Organization officials say at least 90% of children need to be vaccinated twice, 4 weeks apart, for the campaign to succeed. Gaza's Deputy Health Minister Youssef Abu al-Rish said teams would try to get to as many areas as possible, but added the daily pauses may not be enough to guarantee enough children are reached. We call for a real ceasefire so that this campaign can really succeed, he said. The vaccination push comes after confirmation that a baby was partially paralyzed by the type 2 polio virus, the first case in the territory in 25 years. But the effort faces huge challenges in Gaza. The enclave has largely been destroyed by nearly 11 months of war. Nearly the entire Gaza population of 2.3 million has been displaced, and there is a hunger crisis. The conflict was triggered on October 7th when Hamas fighters attacked Israel, killing 1,200 people and taking about 250 hostages, according to Israeli tallies. Israel's subsequent assault on the Hamas-governed territory has killed more than 40,600 Palestinians, according to the local health ministry.
Now, the Israeli military says that it has located a number of bodies during combat in Gaza, but the IDF has not confirmed whether any of the bodies are those of hostages. While the military says it is carrying out a process to extract and identify the bodies, which will take several hours, US President Joe Biden has confirmed that they have discovered bodies in Gaza, saying that his staff is in contact with the Israelis.
My staff's been in contact with the Israelis. They've discovered bodies in Gaza. I'm not sure the exact number. They haven't taken them out yet. And in the meantime, they want to identify the bodies. There's a lot of speculation who they are, the names. And I'm not at liberty to do that at this moment, so the families are notified. And it's time this war ended. We should end this war. I think we're on the verge of having an agreement. It's just time to end it. It's time to finish it.
Israelis have taken the IDF statement to mean that more Israeli hostages have been found dead, amplifying calls for the government to secure a ceasefire for hostage deal. Family members of the hostages in captivity held their customary protests against the Netanyahu government in Tel Aviv on Saturday night.
We come to shout for the name of the loved ones that are still captured in Gaza. And this week we are very, very disappointed from the government that decided that instead of working on releasing them, instead didn't listen to the one person that is know about the security and says it's okay to leave the Philadelphia, and all they care about is the politics, and they didn't approve to do a deal with Hamas, and so our loved ones are still there, and currently we don't see the horizon and don't know when they will be back with us.
But hostage and ceasefire talks in Gaza appear to be nearing a collapse. Israeli negotiators have said that while Israel has been willing to go a long way for the return of the remaining hostages, the real obstacle is Hamas's demands. They say Hamas is attempting to pressure the country to abandon its fundamental principles by warning that the talks are close to collapse. This comes after the Security Cabinet voted 8-1 to retain IDF forces in the Philadelphia corridor in any agreement with Hamas. The militant group demands that Israel must withdraw from the critical buffer zone between Egypt and Gaza. But Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu remains insistent that the army must remain there. An Israeli official has said that Netanyahu is risking blowing up hostage negotiations so that the IDF can remain in the Philadelphia corridor for an additional 6 weeks. For more on this, we are now being joined by Colonel David Bederosh. He is professor at Near East South Asia Center for Strategic Studies, National Defense University, and former Deputy Director for Peacekeeping in the Office of the Secretary of Defense. Sir, thank you so much for joining us on World DNA. Always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
So there are two things here. More bodies have been found. It's yet to be confirmed how many of those bodies are those of hostages. That has led to more anger and outrage in Israel. On the other hand, Israel remains insistent on keeping its troops in the Philadelphia corridor. How do you assess this? Many say that Netanyahu government is risking the lives of the hostages just to maintain presence in the Philadelphia corridor. Is it that straightforward, though?
I don't think it is. I think the bigger issue is the generally widely shared goal in Israel of destroying the military capability of Hamas. And it's clear that Hamas is using the hostages as a way of restraining Israeli action against Hamas's military infrastructure. So I think that the Philadelphia corridor is one step towards isolating the military structure of Hamas. But at the end of the day, the ultimate chip that Hamas has to protect itself there's two chips. One is the hostage and the second is dispersal among the civilian population of Gaza. And I don't think they'll give up either one of those easily.
Right, sir. But that being said, we've heard Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that they will not withdraw unless they have completely annihilated Hamas. We've seen discord among Israelis as well. Many say that that is not a realistic goal. How do you assess that at this point in this war? It's been over 10 months. Do you think that's still a realistic goal for Netanyahu to pursue, or hostage release should really be the priority at this point?
Well, I think that the rhetoric about completely destroying Hamas, I think that that's kind of overblown. And I think that the military objectives are ensuring that Hamas lacks the ability to strike into Israel and is unable to reconstitute to where it can strike into Israel. So I think that, politicians somewhat inflame their speech out there. In terms of the hostages, it's really, really difficult. Some countries, Algeria, for example, has a national policy where if a person's taken hostage, they just consider them as dead because otherwise their attitude is that will incentivize further hostage taking. I think that at some point, in the absence of very, very definitive intelligence on the location and the dispositions of hostages, you kind of have to pursue your national security goals, and the hostages move to a secondary role. The challenge with that, of course, is that the hostages are very emotive, and when you take hostages, you create a constituency in your opponent's population that advocates for negotiations. Israel's very, very aware of this, and they have a long history of difficult negotiations with hostage takers. So it's a real problem. But looking at it from the outside, it appears to me as though the military objectives of destroying Hamas's offensive capability have taken priority over the release of hostages in Israeli policy.
Right, so now just to expand on that, just for better understanding here, do you think peace can be secured anytime soon? Right now we know that there are 8-hour pauses that will kick in for the polio vaccination drive, but do you think we can see any such truce deal or pauses in the fighting going forward?
I hope so, but so far we've seen two rather unsettling patterns. The first is that Hamas does not hesitate to attach itself to, humanitarian aid or to civilian populations or to aid centers to disperse this. And the second is that the Israeli forces will go after Hamas wherever they find them. So one hopes, polio is a really nasty disease. It spreads very quickly. It tends to strike the young, and it tends to destroy their entire life. I hope that we can have something like this, and if it does work, it would be a building block for some sort of negotiation. But I haven't seen anything in the conduct of the war on either side so far that would let me to put my own money on the table saying this is going to expand into peace.
All right. Well, Colonel DeRoche, thank you so much for joining us on World DNA with your insights on this.
Thank you.
Let's shift our focus to the other war front now. Russia claimed Ukraine launched a drone attack targeting Moscow and several other regions in the country. According to Moscow's mayor, a drone flying towards the Russian capital was destroyed. 12 UAVs were downed over Bryansk and 2 over Kursk. There were no injuries or damage as a result of any of the attacks. However, a woman was wounded in Shebkino as Ukrainian forces continued shelling the Belgorod region. This after 6 people were killed and 59 others were injured in a Russian-guided bomb strike on a residential building in the northeastern Ukrainian city of Kharkiv. Also, a 14-year-old was killed in a strike on a playground in the city. In adjoining Sumy, the Russian forces destroyed a large missile and artillery weapons warehouse of the Ukrainian armed forces. President Volodymyr Zelensky renewed his calls for Ukraine's partners to allow it to hit targets inside Russia. To prevent such attacks, the Western countries have partly withheld permission for Ukraine to use their weapons to strike Russian territory, fearing escalation. In May, the United States allowed Ukraine to hit targets inside Russia, but only near the Kharkiv region and only to hit back at the Russian forces, hitting them or preparing to hit them. UK has allowed the use of much of the equipment it has supplied to Kyiv to hit Moscow, the only exception being the long-range Storm Shadow missiles.
Ukrainian representatives have provided all the necessary information, all the necessary details to our partners. And I appeal to the United States, the United Kingdom, France and Germany. We need the capabilities to truly and fully protect Ukraine and Ukrainians. We need both the permissions for long-range capabilities and your long-range shells and missiles. Vital decisions that can have the most significant impact on events should not be postponed.
And U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has sharply criticized former U.S. President Donald Trump over a visit he made to the soldiers' graves at Arlington National Cemetery. She slammed her Republican rival and said that he is unable to comprehend anything other than service to himself. Taking to X, she said that the Arlington National Cemetery is a place where we come together to honor American heroes, and it's not a place for politics. She continued to say, "It is my belief that someone who cannot meet the simple, sacred duty should never again stand behind the seal of the President of the United States of America." These are Harris's first comments since an altercation between a female cemetery official and a Trump campaign staff took place on Monday. The Democratic presidential nominee statement comes after the U.S. Army said that a member of Trump's campaign, abruptly pushed aside a staff member at the cemetery so that Trump and his campaign staff could take pictures and videos with families of service members who passed away during the United States military's withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. The incident occurred in Section 60, where taking pictures and videos is usually prohibited. Responding to Harris, Trump's running mate J.D. Vance said that Trump was there at the invitation of the families whose loved ones died because of your incompetence. He went on to say, "Why don't you get off social media and go launch an investigation into their unnecessary deaths?" Trump defended his actions and said that a family asked him whether he would stand for a picture at the grave of their loved ones.
And while I was there, those families that asked me to be there, as they said, 3 families plus 1 soldier who was horrifically injured, both legs and an arm. And they asked me if I would be there, so I went. And while we were there, they said, could you take pictures over the grave of my son, my sister, my brother? Would you take pictures with us, sir? I said, absolutely, I did.
Now let's take a look at WION's monthly global health check. First, we will deep dive into how global markets performed in August. Oil fell 1.4%, with the benchmark Brent crude trading below $80 a barrel as the demand outlook shows a significant slowdown despite an increase in West Asia tensions and supply worries. Gold closed out the month near record highs as the Federal Reserve announced a crucial pivot to policy easing earlier in August. On the other hand, the dollar fell over 2% as expectations for several Fed rate cuts this year have emerged. The so-called digital dollar or Bitcoin lost its shine in August, down nearly 8%. Moving on to the Asia-Pacific stock markets, Japanese stocks performed strongly in August, rising over 7.5%. Australian stocks saw a nearly 2% gain. The real estate and economic crisis weighed heavily on Chinese stocks as the Shanghai index tanked over 2%. And Indian benchmarks closed out August with over 1.5% gains. The rally continued in American stocks with the S&P 500 and Nasdaq hovering near record highs with over 5% gains for the month. The Canadian stock index jumped more than 5% and the bull run in Brazil continued with over 8% gain in August. The picture was similar for the European markets. All the indices in the region gained significantly, with the German DAX leading the rally. South Africa's stock index too rose about 4%. Now let's turn our attention to the overall economic outlook. Let's take a look at the Asia-Pacific region. The International Monetary Fund gave a big thumbs up to India and the outlook for Japan was upgraded. However, the prospects for Australia remain negative, and for China, it turned negative because of the deepening real estate crisis despite tens of billions of dollars in stimulus. That is weighing heavily on the dragon country's economy. For the Americas, the outlook for the US, Canada, Brazil and Argentina was downgraded. However, for the US economy, expectations for a soft landing rather than an outright recession. That is mainly driven by expectations that the Fed will start to cut rates as early as September. On the other side of the Atlantic, the negative outlook seems to be widespread. The UK and other European economies are predicted to just about avoid a recession at best. The outlook for African economies was not very different. They were expected to underperform as well. Let's shift our focus now. Indian shooters shine at the Paris Paralympic Games. Rubina Francis claimed the bronze medal in the women's 10 meters air pistol SH1 event. Francis scored a total of 211.1 to finish third in the eight women final. Iran's Sare Javanmardi took home the gold with a score of 236.8, while Turkey's Aysel Ozgan won the silver. Rubina initially trailed the top 8 shooters during the qualification round but surged towards the end to ensure her place in the medal round. She scored 556 points, finishing 7th and advancing to the final. The bronze medal was a redemption for Francis. She had competed in the same event at the Tokyo Olympics but she finished 7th. India has won 4 medals in shooting so far at the Paris Paralympics. Ivani Lakhera created history on Friday, successfully defending her women's 10 meters air rifle gold medal. She is the first Indian to win back-to-back gold medals at either the Olympic or Paralympic Games. Mona Agarwal bagged a bronze in the same event. Manish Narwal won a silver medal in men's 10-meter air pistol SH1. And Lee Daniels was joined by leading cast of Monique Andrade and Glenn Close for the LA premiere of his first horror film, The Deliverance. More details in our next report. Take a look.
point in my life where I just want to have fun. I want to keep pushing the boundaries, drink it all in, drink life in.
To work around such great women doing their art and doing their craft, and you are watching them, I think we all began to go to school with each other. When you watch those performances, that was just fearlessly done. So to be around those beautiful women and those beautiful men, it was just awesome.
The best. I think that part of me finding my higher power was forgiveness and seeking forgiveness from my good friend, and I couldn't go on this journey without her.
And with that, we call it a wrap on this edition of World DNA. News and updates continue on the other side on WION. World is One. Stay tuned.
Everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I should push myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At WION, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
This week on Inside South Asia, deadly blowbacks by militants in Pakistan's Balochistan against the Pakistan Army's atrocities in the province. Civilians and army personnel killed in cold blood. Rohingya refugees mark the 7th anniversary of their exodus from their homeland. Will they ever be returned safely to Myanmar? From India's Gujarat to the northeast and to the neighboring Bangladesh, rain and flood fury wreak havoc across borders. All this and much more on Inside South Asia.
On Wings this week, a unique spot in Rajasthan's desert that provides a sustainable respite from the heat. We also highlight how foreign tourist arrivals to India is at the highest levels since the pandemic. North Korea, a unique destination, might open for tourism again in December. Can it become the ultimate adventure? Watch Wings this weekend on WION. World is One.
Famine hit Sudan as peace talks fall short yet again. US brokered truce talks collapse after mediators failed to convince the military to come to the negotiation table. South Africa is committed to strengthening bilateral trade and investment with India, says its trade minister, amid launch of the India-South Africa Chamber of Commerce. And one of the success stories of world cricket, Namibia. a country with a population of just 2.6 million with limited facilities and only 9 cricket grounds. That's this week on World of Africa at these times on WION.
This week on Take It Out, we tell you about a new scam that can steal your money. We explain how you can prevent chatbots from collecting your data. And we show you how AI is revolutionizing pet care. This and more on WION World is One at these times.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Hello and very good morning. Thanks very much for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One with me, Raisha Sehgal. There's lots lined up on the show, but first a quick check on the headlines. Amid continued Israeli strikes in Gaza, 8-hour pauses in hostilities to kick in on Sunday to allow polio vaccination of nearly 640,000 children over a span of 3 days. First round of vaccinations already underway. Israeli Defense Forces say it has found dead bodies in Gaza that may be some of the hostages. US President Joe Biden says efforts are on for their identification. Russian officials say they destroyed over